Hey everybody and welcome. I'm Sally and I'm so glad you're here. Today's video is part of my Flexibility for Everybody series, and we're going to be focusing specifically on hip openers. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, it would mean the world if you would take a second to do that. And if you want to be notified when other videos, particularly in this series, come out, you can also hit that notification bell right next to the subscribe button. Other than that, please just make sure your body is warmed up before we jump into this, even if that just means pacing the room a little bit, doing some jumping jacks, doing some body weight squats. We want to make sure that our muscles are warm and a little bit loose before we move into the deeper stretches. So to start out today, we're just going to sit up nice and tall. I always want to kind of check in, take a second to find the breath so we can be intentional throughout this movement, letting it not only benefit the body, but also be a benefit to the mind. So go ahead, just find the breath, really take whatever time you need here, calming yourself down, giving yourself permission to be present. And then we're going to extend the legs out in front of us, stretching them long, sitting up tall, maybe flexing the feet. Take a second to stretch the hamstrings, just a gentle sensation here. Finding any movement left and right that feels good for you. We're going to go ahead and plant the feet. We're going to bend one knee in and out at a time. All we're doing here is warming up through the hips a little bit, creating some mobility. This doesn't feel like much, but it's going to help us out as we get into more static stretches. So again, taking just a second here, continuing to focus on your breath as we bring one knee in at a time. One more time either side. Good. Find an exhale, extend the legs out in front of you. Let's popcorn out the legs for just a second. I'm going to turn in line with the mat. Presumably you already are. We're spinning the legs back behind us here. And we are going to come to a lunge position. So you can get there however you'd like to. I generally like to come through a downward dog, extending one leg up towards the sky, pulling the knee in and stepping it forwards. But however you want to get there, come to a nice high lunge position, also known as a runner's lunge. We are pressing down into the hips, bringing the hands to the hips as well. So really pressing down into the hip flexor, I should say. And you can adjust this to your desired intensity, coming however shallow or deep into it you would prefer. We can stay right here. This can be the extent of the lunge stretch for today, if that's really what you need. Or if you want a little bit more, we're going to carefully lower that back knee to the ground. This can be both a little bit easier and a little bit more intense because you do have more support here. But also as we press further forwards, we're getting deeper into that hip flexor, which is really what we are trying to stretch out today. Sit up tall, we find the breath right here, rolling the shoulders down and back, always practicing good posture in our stretches to facilitate good alignment, and also just to carry into the rest of our day. Exhale, plant the hands down. Again, this is optional, but if you want a little bit more, this is what we're gonna do. Drop those hands down as your body warms. You can find gentle movement right here, just rocking left and right. So beforehand, we primarily felt this stretch through the right hip flexor with the left leg in front, but now as that foot opens up to the side a little bit, we're also feeling it through that left hip flexor. Good, and we can even take it further from here, lowering down onto the forearms if that's what your body needs today. If you choose this option, you might actually feel it come out more to the glute, outer portion of your hip here. Wherever you are, we're going to take about 2 more breaths right here. Now again, however you want to get there is totally fine, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck my back toe. We're going to press up, left leg is going to lower down. We are coming into pigeon pose right here. So in pigeon, we have a few options. I know that some bodies are naturally inclined towards this position and it feels really good for you, but oftentimes it can feel intimidating because you're rocking to the side one way or the other, or you feel like you just can't get into it, and that's totally fine. I'm going to give you a few options here. Number 1, we can grab a block and we're going to set it under the glute of the leg that is in front. So we would set that block under this hip, sinking down, but giving yourself a little bit more support to keep this to keep the hips nice and square to the front. That's option one. If we're not quite ready for that, that's totally fine. We're gonna come out of pigeon. We're gonna plant one foot down. This is called a figure four or an upright pigeon. Left leg crosses over just below the right knee. We sit up tall, and you're still feeling that stretch in the outer left glute as we adjust the intensity, bringing the foot, bringing the hands closer to or further away from the body. One more option here, same thing, but laying down here on your back. We can pull that leg in or loosen up on our grip to adjust that intensity. But wherever you are, we're gonna allow ourselves to sink into this for a little while, really finding the breath. If we are in that standard pigeon, we're sinking down just a little bit further as your body warms and acclimates to the position. We can even extend the arms out, sinking the chest down, really taking whatever you need right here. 2 more breaths together. Exhale, press back up. Now that we've gone through that first side in more depth, we're just going to transition over to the other side. I like to get there, tucking the toe, extending the left leg up. While we're here, let's go ahead, bend that left knee open. Feel that nice stretch, pressing the chest closer to the ground. Feel through the hip flexor, also into that psoas. Exhale, plant that foot down. Inhale, right leg lifts up towards the sky. Exhale, send it forwards, finding our nice high lunge now on the right. Of course, I have to adjust my pants. There we go. Sitting up tall into that lunge to start, adjusting the intensity by sinking further down into it. And we'll all stay right here for a moment, relaxing the shoulders. And then you have that freedom to decide which option you want. If you want a little more support or a little bit more potential for intensity, we can drop the back knee, pressing forwards, stretching deeper into the hip flexor. Use the breath. Good, we can drop the hands. If you want a little bit more, we can turn the foot out slightly. Beautiful. And for that last option, if you want even more, we can drop the forearms down to the ground. A good rule of thumb when we are doing these stretches is to take it to that point where it is uncomfortable, but not painful. We don't want to be experiencing outright pain. In that case, we would most likely be overstretching our muscles, and that's going to do a lot more harm than good. Allowing yourself to be uncomfortable is where growth is really going to happen. But if we push past that too much, we're going to be experiencing probably more harm than good ultimately. Good. Okay, let's tuck the toe. Come down to your pigeon. Gently make your way right there. Carefully lower down. And of course, we have those other options. I'll show you again for figure 4 on this side. Plant your left foot. Right leg crosses over. We sit up nice and tall. Roll the shoulders down and back. Or we can lay on the back, adjusting the intensity by pulling the left leg a little closer to the body or releasing it further away. And while we're here, we can take some time to observe any differences between left and right. It's totally normal to have some asymmetry. And that's totally fine, but it's good to be aware of it so that we can be more mindful of how our body moves through space and work towards correcting those imbalances. And of course, in pigeon here, if you actually want a little bit more, we can always adjust the intensity, taking this bent leg, walking it a little further away from the body, or if it gets to be a little bit too much, bringing it a little closer in to the body. 2 more breaths here together. Exhale, tuck that back toe, plant the hands, return through 3-legged dog. And while we're here, bend knee to open through that right hip now. Good. plant the foot. We're gonna come back down to the mat, but we're going to come through a little squat here. This is gonna look different for different people. I will turn to face the front. You can hear my knees popping, I know, but we're just gonna take a second to open up the legs here. You might be on your toes. Those heels might drop down towards the ground. You might be higher up than this. That's totally fine. Just something to work towards and be gentle with yourself through. Good, okay. Exhale, plant the hands down. Let's bring the knees down to the mat. Now, warning, this one looks a little bit funny and it can be a little awkward getting there. So again, just take it at your own pace. It is intense, but there is great reward. So we're coming onto all fours. We're gonna take the knees out nice and wide, and I'm gonna do this from 2 angles so you can see it the best you possibly can. But we're taking the knees out nice and wide, and we're simply starting to lower ourselves down towards the ground. So we might be right here. The hips not quite fully towards the ground, or the legs not fully touching the ground. That's really fine. As you get more used to it, or if you have naturally really flexible hips, those knees might spread out wider, and we might start to sink the chest down towards the ground. Granted, wherever we are right here, we don't want to slip too far forwards because that's going to detract from the stretch. We want to think about keeping the hips back in line with those legs. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable here. This is intense, but again, it's one of the most effective stretches I have found for tight hip flexors. Again, here's from the other angle. Think about forming 2 90-degree angles, one on either side. Let's take about 3 more breaths here. Exhale to bring yourself out of it. I apologize. There really is no glamorous way to bring yourself out of this stretch, but that is okay. Here we go. Carefully bring yourself up. Take a second to roll it out, send the hips left and right, whatever you need. We're gonna come through seated, bringing the feet to butterfly here, sitting up nice and tall as the knees drop down to the sides. We can stay right here with a flat back, or we can begin to maintain that flat back, there we go, pressing forwards, hinging through those hips. A note on your knees, we really want to let the knees fall wherever they naturally want to here. As you get more flexible, they will lower down a little bit more. It also has largely to do with genetics, how your legs fall in this position. But pressure on those knees, I don't know if anyone else experienced this, but that's something I was told to do a lot in gymnastics, was like press your knees down. That can actually seriously hurt you. So please don't do that. Sit up tall, hinge forwards with a flat back, and drive from here. You'll feel this stretch not only through the hip flexors, but through the inner thighs, through the groin, and into the glutes. Two more breaths. And at any point, you can just pause this video, sinking more deeply into one position or another. Taking more time there, whatever you need. Exhale, roll back up through seated. We're coming into a seated 4th position stretch. Again, I'll show you from 2 angles. But one leg stays where it is, maybe even coming in closer to the body. Opposite leg flips around. We bring the right foot to the left thigh, right at the knee. As you get more flexible in this position, the leg is going to come away from the knee, up closer to the body. Sitting up tall, don't force it, but we want to press down into that left hip or into the hip of whichever leg here is bent. Swivel around here so you can see it from the front. Good. Two more breaths right here. Exhale, we're gonna bring the feet together. We're gonna take the right leg out to the side. Same thing on the other side. Again, we can observe any differences between left and right. Good. 2 more breaths on this side. All right, we are nearing the end. We're gonna make our way down onto our backs. This is totally optional, but if you have a strap like this, we're gonna use it now. You can also use a towel or even a sweater, just a longer piece of fabric to help guide the leg up to our next stretch. And you can use your hands, so that's why it's totally optional. Just go ahead and lay down. We're gonna do the right leg first. In a full lower body stretch, I would focus on 3 different positions with the leg, but for the sake of time today, and since we're really focusing on those hips, we're just gonna open out to the side. So take your strap if you're using it, thread it around the arch of your foot, lift that leg up towards the sky. We're gonna keep both hips and both shoulders pressed down as we open the leg out to the side. Again, we can do the same thing just with the hands, but it's definitely a little bit more comfortable, I will say, if you have a strap or a piece of fabric to help you out right here. Two breaths. Inhale this time. Give the leg one big hug in towards the chest, keeping the hips square to the front. You'll really feel this through the hamstring. This is one of those other positions I was telling you about, but we're just coming through it transitionally right now. Plant the foot. Same thing, moving over to the other leg. Pulling it in, pulling it out. And an option we always have here is to keep that left leg planted if that's more comfortable for you. Whatever you need. Again, both shoulders down, both hips down. One more breath. Inhale. Pulling you back in towards the chest. Exhale. Remove the strap, gently releasing the leg down. There we go. Setting it over to the side. Again, almost there. We are just gonna come through happy baby. Pull the knees in towards the chest. We're gonna reach between the legs for either the shins or the arches of the feet. Some people prefer to grab their big toes. We're opening out to the sides. Just however far you can. Don't force it, but this is quite a deep stretch. You can use the breath. Often we'll rock back and forth right here, finding any movement that feels good to you, or stillness if that's what you prefer. And maybe we're right here. That's totally fine. You're still getting a stretch. You're just working towards opening this legs up more. From here we can start to, if you wish, straighten one leg at a time. Or maybe we straighten both legs together. Let's just take 2 more breaths. Exhale. Release. Roll out the shoulders for a moment. They might be tired from holding up the legs. We're gonna end just taking a few breaths wherever feels good for you. In the spirit of hip openers, just bringing my feet together, finding a butterfly position, butt on my back. We'll be placing the hands on the belly, placing the hands on the chest, or down by the side body. Even up above you, even up above head. Wherever you are, just taking this time to breathe, to check back in with the body, making note of how you feel now that you spent that time giving it love and attention. And on your own time, we can begin to move the knees left and right, bringing movement back through the fingers, toes, ankles, wrists, whatever you need once again. Often we'll make our way through one side to press up through seated. Roll out those shoulders, shake it all out, get that blood moving once again. But that's it for me, y'all. I hope you feel more relaxed, looser after that stretch. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the other videos in this series.